you know what? You have to just push on. It doesn't matter. Again, give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, thank you, but no thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to keep doing what I want to do. So I send everything in. 2 weeks later, I don't hear anything. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I did it. I'm good. 2 weeks later, I am literally in a hospital bed. I've just delivered my son. I'm not kidding. Like maybe 8 hours prior. And I got a phone call saying, hey, they'd like to offer you an episode this year. It shoots in 7 weeks.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Connelly.
Holy moly. Today's guest is the real deal. She's amazing, insightful, very empowering, and super inspiring. She has a beautiful energy about her. She even empowered me to realize that my goals and dreams are within my reach, and I'm sure her words will have a positive impact on you as well. I'm in love with Christine's say yes mentality, ability to pivot, as well as trusting her gut. She has a great story of resilience, trust, and collaboration. I love this chat. She's an impressive human. I gained a lot out of this chat, and I know you will too. So let's get into it and officially introduce Christine to the podcast. Christine Lakin is a director, actor, producer, and choreographer. She's probably best known for her role as Al in the 90s sitcom Step by Step. More recently, she was one of 3 Hollywood darlings on the Pop Network alongside Jodie Sweetin and Beverley Mitchell. These 3 women produced the highly improvised comedy loosely based on their real lives and friendship. Christine has also appeared in dozens of films and TV shows such as Modern Family, The Rookie, Station 19, American Housewife, Mother's Day, CSI, The League, Melissa and Joey, Valentines Day, Veronica Mars, and You Again. She's also voiced multiple roles on Family Guy, Cartoon Network's Clarence, and is known as Jane from the Walking Dead video game. And she also narrates numerous audiobooks, in fact over 150, including the best-selling Bosch/Ballard detective series by Michael Connelly, in which she voiced Renee Ballard. Christine has also performed in several acclaimed theater productions and is a nominated choreographer whose work has appeared in many national commercials and on HBO's Westworld, True Blood, Schooled, and ABC's The Goldbergs. Christine is also the creator of the hit storytelling show Worst Ever, which ran to sold-out crowds across Los Angeles and New York before being developed and sold as a series. Additionally, she's also sold scripted content to MTV, Hulu, and has developed with Whoopi Incorporated, Campanario, and Warner Horizon. Most recently, Christine has been behind the camera directing episodic television for Apple, Disney Plus, and ABC, including The Goldbergs and High School Musical, the series. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, such as mentors, pivoting, saying yes, collaboration and success, choreography and getting into directing, second-guessing ourselves, imposter syndrome, and play and fun. Before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I find it adds a new element and dynamic to these chats. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. Oh, actually, this could be a fun place to start. On this podcast, we often talk about like mentors and people that have pushed us in a positive direction. And I'd love to hear about a gentleman named Gary Marshall and what he's done for you in your life.
Yes, Gary Marshall was a big part of my life. I met Gary in 2009. He's obviously a big film director, television producer, actor as well, but people
Okay.
mostly know him for his films. Um, he has a theater here in Los Angeles called, at the time it was called the Falcon. It's been aptly named the Gary Marshall Theater, posthumous. And I was in this point in my career where I was in my, like, I'd say mid 20s. I had done a lot of things. I was still acting, but I was just sort of like looking for a groove. And a friend of mine was stage managing some shows there and recommended me to audition for one of their shows. It was in their family entertainment, their children's productions. They would do these original musicals. So I said, sure, like, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Why not? So I went in, I auditioned. I loved the stage manager, Deirdre. And I met the director, writer of what was then Cindy and the Disco Ball. It was a 70s retelling and reimagination of Cinderella. I met who is now one of my dear friends, Joseph Wary, and he cast me in the show. And from doing that show at the Gary Marshall Theater, Gary would slip in and out. He loved to be at the theater. He had his production office there. He was there all the time. He was always like, walking around, looking to see, watching the shows. And he and I connected.
Nice.
And he loved the show. He thought I had a lot of, I don't know, spunk, I guess. And weirdly enough, very strange coincidence, I had worked with his sister, his sister Ronnie, many years. She was a television producer on Step by Step. So in a very strange twist of fate, I had known his sister since I was a child. And now, I was doing these shows at Gary's theater. He asked me to come in and audition to understudy one of the roles there in a play he was directing. It just started to snowball. And from all of that, I ended up getting cast in Happy Days, the musical, which he directed. I played Joni Cunningham. My bestie, Joseph Wary, played Chachi. And I really found this group of folks, these like theater nerds, and we became very tight in that period of my life. And I ended up doing, we all ended up doing bit parts in many of his movies. My first one was Georgia Rule, and then Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, and Mother's Day. And it was always like a big family affair. Anyone you see in any of those movies, his wife is in all of them. She's usually playing a nurse of some kind. But there are so many like Easter eggs when you know that crew and the people from that theater. When you watch those movies, it's just like a who's who of all of us, basically. So that was sort of my entree. I learned a lot from Gary. He had such a funny way of, he had so many isms, and it's like you can't almost say what someone was to you without like speaking some of the isms. His big thing was always, it's funny if it's got a K in it. So when you're talking about a punchline or a joke, like it's got to have a K. Like a K is a funny sound. Like kerchief is better than handkerchief. Kerchief is funnier. He would say things like, he taught me a lot of things. Like, you've got to stop. You've got to talk to the audience. You've got to say the joke. If we can't hear you, then the joke doesn't land. Like, he had a lot of things like that. There was a famous story, and this just kind of sums Gary up. There was a famous story when they were doing Raising Helen. And Kate Hudson was, on set, and her character in Raising Helen, her sister had just died in the film, and she was really like preparing as an actor, and she had tears and mascara and the whole thing. And he came up to her and he was like, "So what's going on with the tears?" And she's like, "Well, my sister, and she's died, and I'm just going through." He's like, "Yes, but it was a light death, and it's a pretty cry." Because at the end of the day, like, what Gary knew was that he made films for the people. He didn't care that critics hated his movies. He didn't care that things were panned. He really didn't. He made movies for people. And his movies made a lot of money because they resonated with people who just wanted to go and see a part of themselves on the screen. And I think that's what he always took a lot of pleasure in. And he never stopped. I mean, he didn't stop until, until he passed. I mean, he was always had another movie. He was always trying to work up a thing. He was always like going to give it a shot, is what he always said. And, I credit him a lot with like when I was in my mid-20s and just didn't know where my career was going to take me. He gave me a lot of confidence that just by doing the work, whether I was doing a children's musical theater show, which I'm sure some people thought was beneath me at that time, or, trying to write my own show, or, getting a group together and like putting on a production myself. Like it was always about trying to like give it a shot. And like, you can't sit on your couch. He used to say like my treehouse. He was like, you can't sit on the treehouse and in the treehouse and just wait for the phone to ring. And he's right.
That is so awesome to hear. And I love it when people kind of rise up together, where obviously if you're good and, you're respectful and you get along with people, then you'll also be rewarded to work with people in the future. I think that's so empowering to hear. I wrote down like 100 points, but I love that concept of give it a shot, because especially as an actor, and I know that you've been pivoting and changing, and we'll get into it in a second, part of the job, it seems to be, is waiting for that phone to ring. And it can be disempowering. It can make you really project into the future. It can lead to whole many different emotions. But by him just saying, what was the word? Just give it a shot and do the work, to me, it just sounds like it will change everything in your life. It empowers you to look bigger, if that's the way of saying it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, that has been so much of my life. If I ever took a moment, and I've had those moments where I've like had an idea and then I've second guessed myself and thought, no, that's dumb. Right? We've all thought that. We've all had imposter syndrome, or we've all had, second guessed ourselves. But quite frankly, what's the worst that can happen? You give it a shot. No one likes it. No one comes to the show. Okay, well, but you did it. You'll never know either way. So the alternative is not doing anything, which is, I think, in some ways worse.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that inertia for a creative, I think that inertia is soul destroying.
Ooh, expand.
Well, I read this book many years ago, and it's interesting because I just reread it again. And you might know this, but it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
I am
It's
aware
kind of
that, yeah.
Have you read it?
One of my guests recommended. I have it by my shelf. Sorry, by my bedside, and I haven't, but I'm aware of it. But go on. It sounds
like it's literally on my
notes.
desk.
Everyone I've spoken to has notes. Yeah.
My notes and my morning pages and my thing. And I don't think it matters where you are in your career. I read that book when I was 28, and I'm reading it again now, 15 years later, because I have to remind myself a lot of like actually what it takes to do the work of being an artist, and how to take care of yourself as an artist. And if you treat your artist like a child, like your inner child inside, the rewards and benefits you can have. Because I think often as we get into a career, we start thinking about logistics and, oh, this is my career. I need to be quite sensible, and I need to go make money, and I need to like meet this person. We forget that a lot of our creativity stems from play, and it stems from dreaming and leisure and, giving yourself all of that stuff to feed the artist so that you can have the crazy ideas that you think to yourself, is that crazy? Or is it like just a really great idea? Like, let me expound upon that. I've had some of the craziest things that have ever come to me. I've had a lot of ideas in my life, but there's some of the ones that I'm like, I don't know, might just work. Like, let's give it a shot. Oh. And some of them have proven to become very successful or paid off in ways that I never expected them to pay off. I was never doing it because I was like trying to like white knuckle it and like really like be successful and like this is the thing that's gonna like propel me forward. I was just so into this dumb idea. That's how I look at it. Oh, I've got another cool dumb idea.
Is that through my experience? I've written, which we'll talk about in a little bit, a lot of screenplays, and that's purely come when I let go and when I'm not so attached to an outcome. Which, that being said, that's my default, and we have to work through that. But when I've been in those small moments of joy and bliss, or whatever you want to call it, and I've allowed whatever to come through, it just kind of, the whole body just is like electrified, and these amazing ideas come through. But it's only through my conscious mind. The only way that I've been able to really like process that is when I've let go, I put aside all of the anxieties of the day and all of that stuff and allowed in. Is it a similar experience? Is that what you mean when you've been able to get these crazy ideas?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think sometimes it's sort of shocking how you can sit down and be like, today I will write something, and how it's just nothing comes, and you sit there and you're like toiling, and you're like got all these note cards and you're trying to come up with a story, and you're like, and then out of nowhere, one day you have this brilliant idea and you're like, oh, and then it's that, and then that, oh, and then they can do that. And then without even thinking about it, you've written 8 pages or 10 pages or 15. And I really think like that's when the flow, that's when like your higher power, you can call it whatever you want, okay, religious or not, but I do think we all have this like higher power that channels through us. And I think that is like, I mean, that's what we all want. That's what we all want to be doing, because it's effortless and it's play, and that's what we always have to remember.
That flow state, everyone can experience, whether they're creative or not. Even like in my very low level basketball games, when for some reason I've just kind of like breathed, allowed myself to be fully grounded, I'll do things, and I'm not professional, I'm in like the lowest league, but I'll do things where I didn't even know is capable, and we can do it in all aspects of life. And to me, it's just this like superpower of, it just excites us and lifts us up on every level, and we can do things that we didn't know was possible. And I just think it's the most amazing concept. I also actually wanted to pick one point. I'd love to know your philosophy. A lot of writers say you have to write every day, and if you're not writing every day, then you're not a writer. What is your take on that?
Well, I definitely think that getting back into the flow of this book, and like I had forgotten about morning pages and what these are and the reason we do them, it does open up the creative portal. And it doesn't mean that you're writing something brilliant every day. You might be like, oh, it's raining outside. Man, my hair feels dry. I got a weird phone call the other day. I mean, you might be writing nothing, Doesn't matter. You're writing it. And I think there's an act, whether you're typing or really writing, there is this like connection to your mind being able to free flow in a way that I think it can't with other tasks. I mean, I will say there are certain things when I'm doing them where I've been able to have like really great ideas, usually in the shower or driving, not in traffic. Traffic is its own thing, but like if I'm just like driving and it's flowing and and it's like my other brain is like working while I'm doing it. And I think that's when I've had some of my best ideas, actually.
It's very interesting. I've heard a lot about walking, driving's new, showers, because we kind of just relaxed in a sense. I don't know, traffic is another beast because there's a lot going on there. But there's a theme that I'm gathering, and it's just about like letting go and trying to be as grounded as present, and beautiful things will come in. And
I think self-censorship, right? That's the other thing. When you're doing those morning pages and you just get into the flow of like, okay, every morning I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write 3 pages. Whether that takes me, 10 minutes or 30 minutes, it doesn't matter when I'm writing. I don't ever have to read this again, and they're not for anybody else but me. But when you're writing those things, and like, I just found a bunch of old notebooks because I was going through like, stuff in our office, and I forgot how many notebooks I've filled. And now I'm like revisiting them and being like, oh my God, like, right, I remember that one. That was great, but I think that the self-censorship is a big part of it. And when you get into a flow of like stopping to self-censor yourself, I think you can actually uncover something great. It might take a little while, but it's in there.
Okay, I've got many questions on this. So are you talking about from like a journaling side of when you wake up, you write down like what's going on, how you're feeling?
Yeah, or it can, I mean, it's supposed to be in the morning, but quite frankly, I have two small children, so I do it anytime is okay,
Yeah, whenever
as well.
it feels right.
Yeah.
That's when I don't do it that much. But I'll give an example. One of my friends also been on the podcast, and when he was writing, he found it a bit challenging because he was writing as if he thought someone was going to read it. And then when he finally let go and he put aside that it needs to be perfect and he didn't need all these wonderful adjectives, when he was writing how he felt, one, ideas came through, but two, he actually felt a huge emotional release in a very positive way because it was almost as if he was releasing the words on the paper, and that became huge
Yeah.
therapy for him. And I always thought many years ago, oh, what is writing going to do? And then ultimately I do screenwriting, but I just cannot believe the profound effects that I've heard of from people about just getting their emotions or what they're observing, and it builds clarity, it builds almost a resilience, and it actually allows us to almost not be a victim but see from an outside perspective of what's going on, and huge healing has
Yeah.
come through. Has this been something that you've always done? Like, how did you discover it, or why did you want to do it? Or yeah, I've just thrown a lot at you, but we'll see where we go.
Well, I came to it from my friend Jen Seifert. She 15 years ago decided that she had read this book and decided that she wanted to run a small group, like a small accountability group. And we all met at my house once a week and we read the chapter, and then we would talk through the chapter and we would do some of the tasks, and we would just like keep each other accountable and like talk through it. And during that first time of doing it, I had I had some ideas of something I wanted to write and produce, and it just sort of gave me like the confidence to do it because I wasn't self-sabotaging. I wasn't censoring myself. I wasn't saying, "Oh, that's so dumb, Christine. No one will think that's funny." Like, ugh. And so I just sort of did it. And in doing that, I wrote this ridiculous like short form mockumentary
Oh, I heard
that's
about
called
that.
Love and Lakin, and it's sort
Yeah.
of like it's like a loosely based on someone like me. I play a dumb version of myself, and at the time, I had a friend, my friend Dave. He was doing documentaries about very serious subjects and things, but he had all this equipment, and he said, "Hey, I just want to do something fun. I just want to shoot something fun." And I was like, "Well, I got something that might be fun." So we worked on it together, and he brought a friend in, and then I called in all my friends for favors, and I got a couple like names in there, and we shot this thing and edited it. And then we eventually put it in some film festivals, and then it won at New York Television Festival, and it was sold to Hulu, and
Wow.
it took on this whole life. That was not my goal. I wasn't writing this because I was like, I have to sell a web series starring me. Like that was not the goal. I was just letting out the creativity. So from that, Jen has actually now made a business of doing this, and this is what she does, and it's called Creativity XR. I'll plug it for her because I'm
Yes,
taking
please
her
do.
class right now, and it's incredible. It's all over Zoom, and we're almost in our 10th week. And this is something that I think, like, if you were to just do this book by yourself, of course you could do it. But when you do it in a community with other creatives who are also going through their own blocks and their own struggles, there's something just really collaborative about that. I think it makes you feel like you're not alone. I think so also often we can feel, oh my God, woe is me. Everyone's getting auditions. Oh, look at Facebook. Oh, look at Instagram. That person's on set. That person made a music video. Oh, that person wrote a book. I can't do anything. Right. But when in fact, because it's a very solitary process creating sometimes, especially in the beginning, when in fact, like, having that community, having that group of other artists who can sort of commiserate about and really embolden you and come up with great ideas for, what might be really fun for you. You know what I did this weekend? I went roller skating. Everyone's like, really? Yeah, it was so fun. These are the things that we have to feed our inner artists. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it's been awesome.
Oh, okay. This is amazing. I love play and fun. We can speak about it for 100 hours. But I really love what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you've got this group and you're working together, not only are you challenging each other, but you're building up together. So it's almost like the success is shared in a sense. Whether someone gets a big movie and you have nothing to do with it, you still have helped in some capacity. And success shared is better than success alone, in my opinion. And we don't
Always.
and we don't really talk about that enough in this day and age. And as an artist, it can be very lonely. Auditioning, getting 1,000 rejections, hearing no's, maybe getting a job and then it doesn't go ahead, or pilots don't go ahead. But when you've got people that you can work with and trust, regardless if it leads to an outcome, like a job, for example, it still
Right.
lightens us up, and it can allow for the play and fun that you're talking about, but just enrich us as a person, which makes us a better artist. So I love this. And, you're speaking about Gary as well, where there was kind of that tribe of people where you build up together. And we don't talk about that enough, where working with the right people that can kind of empower us or lift our spirits up, can just make life so much easier and so much more fun and easy, and so many more adjectives as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Also, we do this thing sometimes when we become blocked as creatives, when we're resistant and we're blocked, and we think like, oh, there's a lot of jealousy and competition. Oh, why does that person get to do that? Well, why can't I get that audition? Or why can't I, get in front of that manager or whatever? When in actuality, you're only in competition with yourself. It has nothing to do with anyone else. So it's really like a chance for you to look inward. But also, when I've been in this group with people, whether it's my theater company or whether it's the Artist Way group, like, yes, everyone's success in that group feels like a win for all of us.
Cool.
I genuinely want everybody in that group, like when people share a success, it's like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And I feel like there's something in that shift. There's something in that energetic shift. The law of attraction. So there's something in that energetic shift that shifts for yourself too,
Yep.
And I feel like when I was doing stuff, and I say this all the time to actors who feel like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I get noticed? And how do I do this thing? Listen, I get that social media is a new part of this game, and we can play with it, and you can put your work out there, and you can actually create on it and all of that stuff. And I think that's cool. It's a really cool platform to be able to use. But your likes and your followers, it's not all about that. Like, we have to remember the work. We have to remember that it can't just be about like fame and popularity. Like, the work is the work. And when you go do theater for $1 somewhere, and it's not about the fame or the money or the whatever, but it really is about the work, that there's a different joy that comes from it. And there's a different way of, like, I guess, I never thought, I'll say it this way, I never thought that my career was going to take the twists and turns it did. And I think I've been able to pivot in so many ways because I have said yes to a lot of uncertain doors. And a lot of doors that didn't on paper make a lot of sense. Like, I'm going to choreograph this 99-seat theater show because somebody asked me to. And I was like, okay, sure, for $2 and a grape soda, and like, no problem, I'll do it. But those were the things that laid the seeds for me to be able to do the next thing, and then the next thing, and then, oh my gosh, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm getting asked to direct something.
Yeah, wow.
It took a very long time, but that whole, like, all of those experiences, you can't just leapfrog to the end. You can't.
And we all want that.
And we all, yeah. You have to realize, like, every single one of those things is important because the work is important.
That's amazing. And, on that, and I know you've done many different pivots, and we'll hear more about that maybe now or maybe in a second. It's crazy how you went from an actor and then, reading between the lines and hearing podcasts, there was a point in your life where you wanted to make some shifts, and we've spoken about play and fun, and we're still going to dive into more of play and fun. And then you got these opportunities where you're a choreographer And then through that, which is something that you've obviously passionate about and very talented as, that led to directing. And directing through an outside perspective looks like it's so hard to get in, like so challenging. And yeah, okay, there's a journey that I'd love to hear about it. And you found your little niche way. Oh, sorry, not little. You found your niche way of getting in. And now you're doing directing and producing and writing and just a gazillion things. And as you said at the start, that you didn't think that it would be for you in this capacity. I assume you just wanted to, and there's no just, but you wanted to be an actor. And now if you look back at your life and go, wow, look how many things I've been able to do. But that came through, you know, you saying yes and allowing yourself to experience different opportunities. So yeah, I just think that's so amazing. And I'd love to know, was it a conscious, you know, you made it seem like in your 20s that maybe something wasn't working for you, or you wanted to just be a bit more fulfilled? Is that what led to this pivot or change, or however you want to call it?
Yeah, I think it was, it's really kind of been a natural evolution. I say that I fell into this career. I did. When I was 6 years old, my family moved to Atlanta and I had been dancing. That was kind of my sport. And, from the moment where I was like, what's drama? I want to take that. Like, I was a kid who wanted to perform. I wanted to put on a show for everyone. That was just my personality. So that was who I was already.
Yeah.
My mom and dad have always been very supportive and like kind of, gave me the tools to be able to do that. But everything from that point on, like falling into an acting class, having a manager who said, you might be good in commercials, going out for a few, getting booked on some, getting step by step. Like it's a whole intricate web that also feels like it was a lot of serendipity, luck, timing, preparation, opportunity. Like it all kind of has done this at various points in my life. So it's not like I think someone wakes up and, is at 3 and is like, I'm an actor. I mean, maybe Daniel Day-Lewis does. I don't know. But then, having had those opportunities, I guess in my 20s, it was really about kind of, I'd done that job for a really long time. And I love that job. I love the job of acting. I love creating with other people. I love actors. The business of getting the job, the constant auditioning, the constant rejection is wearing. And I started to just become a bit tired of that being the narrative, or the only narrative, I should say. The getting of the pilot and doing the great thing. And oh my God, I got this big job. And then like nobody ever saw it. It never went anywhere, like never did anything, or you get some jobs you get and they're like amazing, amazing people, really funny, great script. And then sometimes you get a job and it's okay. It's a job, I mean, that's with everything, right? But I guess for me, I just wanted there to be more in the narrative. So when I started doing theater and I found my peeps and I was with my homies, then it be kind of, again, I fell into this choreography thing. Hey, we need a dance captain. Does anyone know how to dance captain? And I was like, I have dance training. They're like, you're the one. Okay.
That's so great.
So I just start doing it. I do it. And then I start choreographing for my theater company. And then my name gets passed around and I'm doing it all around LA. And then I get nominated for Los Angeles theater. And I'm like, I'm just using this weird skill set that I have. I wasn't ever like trying to do it, but now I'm doing it and I know I'm good at it. And it's actually really fun and I'm enjoying it. So in the midst of that, at the same time, taking Artist's Way, doing Love and Lakin, selling that, having like such a great experience, realizing like I was never happier than when I was creating that show. That is such a bright spot in my mind. And it was so little and low stakes. Like it didn't matter. It was so fun. It brought me back to the days with my dad's video camera when I'm in like 3rd grade and I'm like, hey, okay, you go over there, and I'm making videos. That's what I used to do on the weekends. So have I always been a director and I just didn't know it? I think partly. So in a roundabout way, all of these like skill sets, then I get this job I start getting hired for film and television. Again, it's like I fall into it. I didn't even have an agent at the time.
Oh,
I had
really?
worked on a movie called Reefer Madness, and I worked with Marianne Kellogg, who was the choreographer. And when we got back to LA, she hired me to assist on a movie called You Again. And that first AD, whose name is Sunday Stevens, she went on after that movie to work on True Blood. And she's like, hey, we need a choreographer to come in just to do this like mini-sode. It's going to just air. It's a promo. It's only going to air on the internet. So like they didn't want to pay like some fancy big person, but she knew I could assist. And so she's like, well, maybe we'll get Christine. And that was the start of another snowball.
Wow.
3 episodes of True Blood, and then 90210, and then Westworld, and then Love Bites, and We Are Men. And it just started to like, and then the Goldbergs.
Yeah, that's
And that was the next big wave of my career. So I came in, who knows? I think it's because I had done an episode of Breaking In. Again, my name got passed to someone who got passed to someone. I do one episode of that. I think it was the same unit production manager. He goes on to the Goldbergs. They have a bunch of kids who need to do 80s stuff all the time. Dirty Dancing, Flash Dance, Beastie Boys, like you name it, school dances, they have it. So I start working on that show. And like at the same time, Love and Lakin had its thing. I was in talks with Jimmy Fox, who was a producer. He was putting together another show. He had seen Love and Lakin. He wanted to do sort of like a unscripted half-hour comedy with 3 women who were sort of big in the 90s, who had a friendship, but we're going to make it sort of like a modern family. They're going to play versions of themselves. He saw Love and Lakin is like, oh my God, like you couldn't be more perfect for the show. So I'm choreographing the Goldbergs, and I'm like writing scripts, and I'm like hustling and I'm doing a little bit of everything. And then Hollywood Darlings happens, and it's me and Jodie Sweetin and Beverley Mitchell, and we pitch that all over town, and Pop buys it, and we do 2 seasons of that. So like all of these things are happening at the same time, but I'm still choreographing. Like I'm doing that show, and I'm still like, yeah, I can be available. When do you need me? Yeah, I'll come do Dirty Dancing. When do you need me? Because I loved it all, and I was never going to say, oh no, I do this now, so I don't do that now. Like I just always said yes. So we basically get to, I had already started during that time to feel like, why am I not directing television? Now it's starting to become very clear to me that I know how to do all of these jobs. I've executive produced, I've written my own content, I've directed a bunch of stuff for friends, I've choreographed for the better part of 10 years, I've acted in over 200 episodes of television. And I'm sitting there as a choreographer, waiting, watching behind the monitor, waiting. And I'm watching the director, and I'm like, I know how to do this job. I don't know how I know how to do this job, but being on a set is the only thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I got to do that job. So, yes, this is a very long-winded answer, but
No, it's
all of
beautiful.
those things like led to the light bulb aha moment. And after I had that moment, then I was like, how do I get in? Like, how again do I pivot and get in? Some of these things were sort of like handed to me. This one was not handed to me at all. It took a lot of diligence. It took a lot of people advocating for me. It took me being like, okay, I've got to keep proving myself. I have to keep directing, no matter what it is. Music video, Friends short, Funny or Die sketch, like I'll direct anything you've got, And really, I think it was because of the fact that I had been on the Goldberg set for 5 years, and everyone there knew me. I was trusted by a lot of the cast. It just took a lot of like persuading and a lot of tenacity, and I finally got that one shot. And you get one shot, and you can't screw it up.
Really? Is that
Yeah.
stressful, or you had the confidence or positive nerves? What was when you got it?
I mean, all of the above, It's like all I wanted to do. And for 5 years, it was in the back of my mind. I was just like this little engine that could just trying to make it happen on the sidelines, and like trying to make a lot of different things happen. But that was the thing. I was like, well, if Hollywood Darlings goes a third season, then I will have to direct an episode. Like I've got to get my episode in. And then we got canceled. And just when I thought like I was honestly starting to have a little crisis of faith. Like I remember saying to my husband, like, I just don't know how long I can pursue. I don't know how much fight I have in me to try to get my foot in this door.
Mhm.
And I was pregnant with my second child. I was like 9 months pregnant with my second child.
Wow.
And I got a call saying, hey, I know this is really strange timing, but there might be an opening in the next season, and they want to know if you're still interested. And I said, well, yeah. Like, great. Adam Goldberg would like to see your reel. And then I had like a full meltdown in my head because I had the worst like imposter syndrome. I kept
Yeah.
thinking about all the things I had done. Now, look, I can't blame myself that I don't have like 15 network television shows on my reel. That's the whole point. I didn't have that yet.
Yeah.
I had sketches and I had short films and I had, music videos. Like I had what I had. And I loved all of them. But in my mind, I'm like, he's going to hate it. I'm like, you know what? You have to just push on. It doesn't matter. Again, give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, thank you, but no, thank you. Okay. I'm not going to die.
Yep.
I'm going to be okay. I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to keep doing what I want to do. So I send everything in. 2 weeks later, I don't hear anything. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I did it. I'm good. 2 weeks later, I'm literally in a hospital bed. I've just delivered my son.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Like maybe 8 hours prior. And I got a phone call saying, hey, they'd like to offer you an episode this year. It shoots in 7 weeks. How do you feel?
Wow.
And honestly, like, I mean, I was high on, all the estrogen and progesterone. Like I looked at my husband and I was like, what do you think? He's like, well, you need to be, physically, it's up to you, but I think you should do it if you can. And I saddled on up and did it. I think that first one was a mix of a lot of things. Yes, I was nervous. Yes, I had a lot of support around me, which was also incredible. And I also relied so much on, I did so much homework and I did so much preparation, but I also relied on, like, I had to remember that I work really well on instinct. I know I've done this job. Like, I know how the joke should go. I know how to talk to an actor. Like there was so much about the job that was already so inherent that I had to stop second guessing myself and just do it. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. That is the most magical story. And there's so many points I want to tie in as well, because often, as we said at the start, we want something like at the click of our fingers, but
Right.
you need to accumulate skills. And I always thought, like, I've done accounting, for example, and I was like, accounting's never going to help me in this career, but it is helping me in this career. But it's amazing, for example, with you, the accumulation of skills that you've gathered throughout your entire career, whether it was dancing, writing, producing, and how all of that, and it may have felt like a long time, but all of that has helped you along the way of this journey. And for example, if you never said yes to being a choreographer, then maybe it wouldn't happen, or maybe it would happen in a different way. And then also within that whole skill set of doing everything along the way, maybe if you got offered the directing job 5 years earlier, maybe it wouldn't have been the success that it is today. And to hear like kind of your path of how just showing up and doing the work, and obviously you're very humble, but obviously being very nice to work with, has helped pass your name around. And that's when you say like doing the work, it means just showing up and doing the best that you can. And it will lead to so many different opportunities that we didn't even think would happen. And I think that's such a nice story to hear, because we think we just apply for we go to film school, we study directing, we're going to be a director, and probably get rejected for the next 10 years, depending on various variables. And then to hear how you still kept on pursuing it, but you were still like playing and having fun and doing other things in the way. So it wasn't just totally consuming your mind. I think that's very awesome. And I might be jumping the gun here, but you mentioned a few times the self-censoring. And so I imagine that you probably had to let go of certain beliefs or certain ways. Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell me, what did you have to release to allow yourself to take advantage of your success?
I think, and they actually say this when you go for your DGA training right before, like when you get into the Directors Guild, you go and do this like, oh, welcome to the Directors Guild. We're going to give you some
Interesting.
helpful points. So you're not an imbecile when you get there on your first day. You know, there are some people, I've been obviously on sets a lot, but there are some people, and this is their first, you know, opportunity, and maybe they've been a writer or maybe they've been an editor. So maybe they haven't had more of the on-set experience. And so they just want to like catch everybody up. But one of the main tenets that they say, one of these mantras is, nobody knows what they're doing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's true, because think about it. We have this script, okay? It was someone's vision. And then we talked a lot about it in prep. And we talked about, well, what do we want it to look like? And how big should the prop be? And is he really like that? Like, what's the level of anger here or whatever? Like, we've all talked over what the script is so that everybody, the producers, the writer, like we're all on the same page to what we really kind of understand. How many extras do we have? You know, all the logistical things. But then you actually get on the set and then it's like practical. And now everybody's looking at everyone going, what do we do? You know? And it's just helpful to know, like, yes, people are looking to you as the director because you have to give them the game plan. But also no one's looking at you like, well, they don't know what they're doing. Like, you can't have that in the back of your head, because actually everybody's thinking like, what do I do? What are we doing? So as long as you come in strong and you can welcome opinions, you can welcome collaborations, I find that to be, for me anyway, I have found that to be rather successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say, I really want to do this. This is the shot. And then we go into this, and then we go into this. And I have the DP going, I'm not loving the sun. And I'm like, okay, can we cover the sun with a thing? They wouldn't give us that. They didn't give us another, no, we don't have the budget for this or this or that. And you're going, okay, how can we pivot? Ideas? But what if we're over here? Yes, we can turn over here. Okay, but then when we turn around, we're here. Like, we're all just figuring it out, you know? Yeah. I think it's so important, like the way I work, and because I've done this for so long, one of my biggest pet peeves as an actor, and again, because I was on the other side and still am sometimes, is when I walk in and I feel like, even if it's a direction I don't love, as long as there is something to hang my hat on that I can then ask questions about. When someone goes, yeah, so welcome to set. So, yeah, maybe we'll have you over here. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm losing confidence, because you've got to have a plan. Even if it's not the plan you end up with, someone's got to start with a plan, because that's where confusion comes in. So I feel like I'm really good at that. I'm really good at the homework, but I can also improvise, and I can also collaborate. And especially like if a joke's not working, or an actor isn't feeling it, or, you know, we're not getting the performance that we were hoping for, like, how do we amend? How do we change? Sometimes it's the words, sometimes it's in the direction, you know? So it's a kind of like a constant game that we play. And then you're always up against the clock. And that's the other thing that's always in my head, because I'm aware of that. And I think most directors who are successful are usually aware that there are time constraints and money on the lines. You have to be aware of a lot of things at once.
Yeah, that would be very distracting for me.
Yeah, I think that plays to my skill sets for whatever reason. I've always done how many jobs have I had at once?
That's
a lot.
Yeah. And that would also come into, you know, we talked about self-censorship and imposter syndrome, but trusting yourself. Because, you know, even just, for example, in the directing example, you're told you've got one shot. And from my experience of listening to people that have done directing, is you can have the plan and you need a plan, but it's never going to go to plan because the sun, how can you think about that? But to be able to think on the fly, and when we have imposter syndrome, for some people that aren't as consciously evolved as you, it could lead to anger or lack of collaboration. And we might want to prove with the arms crossed, we're doing it this way to show everyone that we think that we're in control. whereas we're never really in
Right.
control. And whereas
Right.
with you, you've got this really gentle way of working with everyone, allowing for collaboration, but also being able to be firm enough to make a decision. Because there could also be the people pleasing where, what do you think? And then what do you think? And then you've just got all this information, you can't make a decision. So I'm just very curious because you've obviously done a lot of work. I know that you've I think you've done meditation and you've done some spiritual practices as well. But to get from, as an artist, we've all got the people pleasing and we all want to like prove everyone. We've all got these inverted commas negative emotions, but you've somehow managed to smash them on the heels and be able to be centered, trust your intuition. Very rare. Please tell me your secrets. How do we get there? It was a lot of work. I know you've had tribes. I know you've read the book. Were there certain practices and stuff that you've done throughout your life to keep you centered and full of grace?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always a work in progress. It's always work. So I still have moments of massive doubt. Don't get me wrong. I still have moments of my people pleasing runs deep in my life. My perfectionism has crippled me at times
Oh,
because I want, something, I want it all to go so well.
yeah.
And like when it doesn't, it can be like, ugh, like just like so frustrating or annoying, when the prop doesn't work or like the one gag we need. And now we've wasted 45 minutes on the thing that worked perfectly yesterday in the test, but isn't working at all right now. These are just things that happen. These are just roadblocks. It can't become everything. It just can't. So, in my mind, I start thinking of, all right, what's the next solution? Like, what can we do to salvage, because it's working, especially collaborative work, is always going to be a flow. It's never just going to be, here's the thing we're doing and here's how it looks. If I were going to do that, I'd be a painter because I could control it completely. But in some ways, we're making a collaborative painting. We're making a mural, like a moving mural. And everybody is quite skilled at their jobs. So, I think the best environment is to be able to have a lot of grace for everyone and a lot of grace that it doesn't always work out all the time. And the more that we can work together and pivot when necessary, like that's the best we can always do. Working in COVID, let me tell you what. In the early days of the COVID in 2020 and 2021, it was challenging. Lot of COVID testing, lot of PPE, lot of me in masks behind shields, screaming at people because no one could hear me. I mean, it was presented a whole other level of challenges.
Even
Sometimes the
flex.
point where you're looking at people and you're like, how are we working like this? Like, how are we working under these conditions? It was a lot. There was anxiety too from a lot of, somebody would test positive and everyone would go, ah, So this is before we had a vaccine, before we had anything. So it was, it felt very front lines, but we all got through it together. I mean, what's the secret? I don't know. I don't know what the secret is, Michael. I know that I, every day, try to put my best foot forward with a job. And I'm grateful that I get to do what I love. Maybe it's easier said for me in my art than sometimes it's even said in my life. Like I step on a set as a director and I'm like, this is all I've ever wanted. This is being here is all I've ever wanted. Because professionally, because it's all I know, for the love of God. It's like, I mean, if you've been in a play group your entire life, and then you just get to go and play with people for the rest of your life, like it is that comforting, homey feeling of knowing how we all work together. I get that. I lived that as a child. I get it. I get what a camera does, and I like the jokes that come in at Video Village and the scripty, and it's just like the flow and the camaraderie, and it just makes so much sense to me. So I come in with a lot of gratitude. I think that's always helpful whenever we approach with gratitude.
It is. I'm trying to implement gratitude practices in my life. And then if something hasn't gone to inverted commas the plan, so I don't get into a negative mindset, I'll say three things why that was good. Or if someone's pissing me off, what are three good things about them? So it always makes it not me against them. And it means I can
Yeah.
see a situation a bit larger. But the idea of, okay, so with a lot of actors, for example, you've done so many things along the way. It can be very common if you're on a show, which is like for like 1% of people, you've been doing a show for so long and you go, oh, another day at work. But which is very normal. We do it in all aspects of life. But for you to like even just step up and acknowledge of where you're at, not only is it empowering just everyone else, but it's empowering to yourself because it's acknowledging the work that you've done and that you're about to do. And I think that also changes our mindset and it makes us less attached in a controlling way. It means you're there for the people, not just for yourself. And so I've always found
Yes.
gratitude practices life-changing. How did you kind of discover that? Just something you just tried, like this works, or?
I think gratitude is a word that has been in the zeitgeist more as of recent, right? I think we've all come at it from different spiritual practices. I know that, what's interesting, like when I was young and I was working a lot, and I became relatively famous for a while. And it's a weird thing being famous because I didn't ask for that at all. I was just like wanting to entertain, and that was just this weird like byproduct. And sometimes it was uncomfortable. I'll be honest. Like I didn't know how to always handle it. I was very young too, but kids would come up to me and they would want to know all these things, or they'd want my picture, or they'd want my autograph, and you're kind of like, okay, But my parents always said, they're like, you have to understand that for like their excitement, their joy, what you're giving them with an autograph is not just an autograph. It's like the time with you. It's a piece of you. In their mind, they watch you on television, but this is the moment for them. And you only get to do what you do because they watch. So there's this like give and take to it. And listen, I was never like to a level where I know now I think some people are, they can't live their lives and all of this. And it's like, all right, I can see how it can be difficult for people, but I also always found I was also so humbled by it, if that makes sense, because I saw it from a place of like, wow, it's not me that's so great. I'm not so famous and awesome. I saw it from a place of, wow, you're so excited by what I've given you that you just want to interact. And I get to be grateful for the fact that you even watch this show, because that lets me do if no one watched, it wouldn't be on.
Wow.
Right?
Even from an ego side, and when you're talking about step up, right? And you started, was it 12?
Yeah, step by
12
step.
to 19? And, you're
12
growing
to
up.
19, yeah.
Yeah. You're growing up you're growing up on the show. There's, you're just growing up in general. Then it's an enormous show, and then you have to go back to your daily life at school, for example. And I know you've spoken about this in other podcasts and it was a major theme in your life. But even just as a kid going through all of that, the spotlights, the camera, the ego can absolutely consume one. And we do hear the stories of inverted commas child actors going certain directions, even though that's probably a smaller percentage in the scheme. We tend to focus on the negatives, which is not great. But for you and hearing about your story and even getting to know you today, it sounds like you've always had this really like strong, like knowing to a degree, but it's always been about like collaboration and help in the sense of like helping others. But I'm still so surprised that as a kid going through that, probably one of the biggest shows, and you have no ego and you don't think you're the best thing in the world, and you've got a good head on your shoulders and you've got a good work ethic and still do everything. That's quite remarkable in the scheme of things. Did you have like parents like helping you, or you just, from the example you gave before, you knew it was about kind of inspiring others?
Oh, I mean, my parents really were very hands-on, always, from even before Step by Step, like, get my mom getting me involved in theater as a young kid and dance and drama, carting me around to auditions. It was all because I wanted to do it. It was all support, I don't think my parents, like, if I, me being like, I'm going to be in the entertainment industry for the rest of my life. I don't know that would have been their choice for me, but they were happy to support my choice for me.
Yes.
So, I think there was always a lot of gratitude in our house. There was always a lot of humble. There was always a lot of serviceable action for others, and remaining, Gary Marshall had another saying that I love, and I've taken upon it that life is more important than show business. And it's true. And it's how my parents raised me. Like, yes, this is fun. And yes, we get to do these great things. And it's very cool. And okay, Nike sent you a pair of high tops. Like, how generous of them. We should write a thank you note. Anyway, school is important, and real friendships are important, and family is important, and grades are important. And like, this is like real life. And like, the job is like the fun. The job is like the fun extracurricular thing, but it's not who you are in here. The fame doesn't make you better than, the money doesn't just, put you on some other level. Like, it doesn't change anything. And if any of this other stuff suffers, if who you are as a person suffers because of all the goodies of whatever, then we just don't do it. Because like, it's not worth it. The friendships suffer, the family suffers, the behavior, like the grades, like it's just not worth it.
I love Gary and I love your family, and be able to have this, to see the bigger picture, especially at a young age, is very rare. It's all very inspiring, empowering to hear. I would also imagine, even though I've got like 50 points, but we'll see how we tie this all in. But also imagine when you're on a show like that, you're learning a lot. You're learning about life, as we all are. When the show ended, I think you went to college. What were you thinking at the time? Because you would have had this identity as well, that you're on this show, everyone knows who you are, and now that's ending. And I guess, probably clumsily way of wording it, an aspect or an identity of yourself is potentially like fading away or going away. Now you're starting this whole new journey, also at a young age. Was that scary? Was that exciting? All of the above? What was the goal college, and take it through there? What was going on at that stage?
I mean, yeah, it was kind of terrifying, to be honest. I had been in this bubble for so long. For 7 years, I had grown up with these people who became like family to me and were lovely and supported me. And it was just this easy flow of being around them, whether it was the cast or the crew members or our writing staff. Like, it felt so safe. So for that to end, which like everything has its time and a place, everything has its season. So it's like, it can be bittersweet, but it was okay. But then that idea of like, what next? I truly was like, will I ever work again? Was I just like a cute kid that like wasn't talented? I mean, all those voices in our heads, right? That tell us like, actually, we don't know if you're any good. Actually, no one's going to like to see you. Actually, you may never ever get in like a room again and do this. So it was all terrifying. And I was 19 years old. So I didn't have the life experience to know that, everything ebbs and flows. So I think for me, college was always going to be kind of, I wouldn't say it's a backup plan. College was the thing that I was doing in order to have some kind of other life. Should I ever say one day, screw this business and the horse it rode in on, like I had a degree and I could go do anything I wanted. And so that was a big part of, I think, me going to school. But I was working the whole time, which was the irony. Here I was thinking like, okay, I'm going to go to UCLA. and I like fought to get into UCLA, and like, grades and like all of the like extracurriculars and the scores and the SATs. And I get into UCLA and I'm like still auditioning, and I'm like trying once again, this is becoming a theme for me. I'm like going to school and then like rushing to the audition and then like changing in the car and then like memorizing the lines and like, and then like getting the job and then having to figure out how I miss school. And they were like, we don't really like you missing school. And I was like, well, yeah, I get it, but I'm an actor and this is kind of how I pay for school too. And so I got to kind of just, the amount of classes I had to drop, the amount of classes that there were some semesters I just had to say, like, I have to take a leave of absence. This isn't going to work out. I mean, it took me like 5 years to graduate college. It's fine. I was doing it all. And I was happy that I was finding new things that were giving me confidence as an actor, not just in one role. I was doing stuff that was different, and I was working with new people. And I guess I was thinking like, all right, whether I'm on like another hit TV show again doesn't really matter, because let's be honest, doing something like that once in your life is like lightning in a bottle. Some people have an incredible experience where they hit that kind of special thing a couple times in their life, like a Neil Patrick Harris or something like that, Jason Bateman. Okay.
A lot.
But yeah, and some people, do, but not everybody does. And it's okay. Again, it's all a wave that we ride. And I think I was destined to pivot off that wave onto something else.
It's so cool because Hollywood is an industry of fear. They like to box everyone in. There's the perception. I assume that they would have just seen you as the 12-year-old girl when you were leaving, and you had to like, there's different phases in one's life, and you have to constantly show the casting directors who you are. The odds aren't in our favor. The no's. We talked about pilots not going ahead. All of these things, and you've always kind of come back to the passion and the collaboration and pivot in a positive way. That's really rare, and that's awesome that you've been able to do that. And even just this concept, I just want to tie up this point of just saying yes has allowed you, and amongst other things, to get so far. And even in those moments when you weren't feeling perhaps comfortable, maybe that's not the right way of saying it, where you took like a gamble on yourself and you did that mockumentary. Was it a mockumentary?
Yeah.
Or to just write things and do things and put yourself out there. That's the way that we kind of, in all aspects of life, it doesn't need to just be like acting, for example. That's how we kind of say to the universe or ourselves, you can actually do things. We're not just waiting for that phone to call. And you've empowered yourself along the way. Obviously, there's a journey, there's highs and lows, but you've been able to say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to do something to empower myself. And I think that's so inspiring from the audience to hear, and to tackle even, you mentioned the imposter syndrome, I've written down so many different words, but to have all of these things, which every single human does in our mind, and to actually even make the mockumentary. It's one thing to have the idea, but you actually put yourself out there, which is really scary in a sense, because there's an aspect of yourself and you just kind of done it. So you've just been kind of that yes lady, and you've just done it, and it's led to so many things. So you are my inspiration for yeses, to just put your hand up if it feels right. So I'm very proud of you. And
Thank you.
I reckon we'll do a rapid fire segment to wrap up the podcast. So the first thing that springs to mind, but if you need time to think about it, that's completely fine, because they're never rapid. This is going to what I just said before. What has been your special ingredient to work all these years?
Never giving up.
I'm not going to comment on them because I'll derail them. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Watch TV. Wait, does that work though? It might be work. Well, to be outside, really. I like to hike. I like to be outside, but I also love to watch TV.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you do to help your mental health?
Exercise,
That's a big one.
cook, drink wine, talk to my therapist.
Very nice. Biggest pet peeve?
Rude drivers.
You know what? We've never had that on the podcast, I don't think. 200
Oh,
plus episodes, and we've never had that. And you think that would be the most common one? What are you most proud of?
career-wise, I think just my ability to continue doing what I love in different ways. Personally, my family, 100%.
What keeps you motivated to continue?
The fun, the fun, how fun it is. The collaboration and the fun. It's all play. When we're doing it right, it's all play.
We're going to have to do a part two because there's so much we can say about play and fun, and it's what allows us to thrive. Do you have any regrets?
A few, but they were really good learning experiences. I would not do them over necessarily. But they were good experiences in learning how to manage expectations with personalities.
We'll leave it
It
there.
sounds very loaded.
Yeah, well, I'm reading between the lines. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. Um, what would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Fly.
And
I would
within
just flap my wings and fly.
that's a nice metaphor. And within the current abilities humans have,
Oh, okay. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? Gosh, if I knew that people would come, which I guess means they wouldn't fail, I would just headline like a big concert or something.
cool.
Just be in front of just headline like some kind of big live show.
I'd see that. We're putting it out there. Maybe we can do a GoFundMe or something and get it moving.
Great.
And this is a very loaded question. When you finally made Love in Lakin, did you, obviously it was met with a smile, but did you feel like you released certain emotions just by watching it?
Like from my past, you mean?
Yep.
Um, I wouldn't say release emotions, but I think for me, using humor in that way and being able to make fun of myself was really liberating. Because whether there was ever an elephant in any room, when, someone's like, she used to be a child actor, you think that sometimes in your head, like, oh God, people are staring at me like I'm like this washed up weirdo has-been person, you know? It was like literally owning that narrative because that character of me, that Lakin character, was someone who was just so awkwardly obsessed with the fact that she was just trying to be famous again. And I never cared about that. Like that wasn't me, but that idea that anyone ever thought that, I guess it was sort of liberating to be able to like have control over that narrative in a comedic way.
Oh, it sounds so empowering as well. And yeah, you're taking like ownership and saying, you know what, I don't actually care. And with humor, such a good idea. I love it.
Yeah.
Next big dream or goal.
Direct a film.
We're going to put
I
that
want
one
to
out
direct
there.
a
I've got a
feature.
few films that I'll write for you, and we'll see.
Great. Get it going.
Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps are a bit fearful of doing so?
Yeah. It all starts with the first action. You have to start somewhere, even if it's not where you think it's going to go. There is a butterfly effect to your actions. And everything that's worth it takes a bit of hard work. Even when you get it, even when you do it, it's still hard work. It still is. I don't think there's any successful A-list actor out there, even after you win that Oscar, that goes home and is like, well, I did it. It's done. I think even at the top of your game, you're still like, what's next? What decision do I make? Oh, I got, a successful actor. I got 5 offers, but 4 of them are crap or roles that I hate. And one of them is this really small play that I want to go do in Williamsburg. And your reps are like, why would you go do that? You'll make $5. No, we can't do that. You got to do the dinosaur movie. So it's like, I think everyone, it's all different levels, but I think it's always work no matter what it is. I love what I do, and I still hustle for every job I get. That's how it always kind of will feel. And when you get into the job, yes, it's play, but it's also like a lot of time and energy and away from your family. So just get used to the fact that there's never anyone that gets to some point in life and thinks like, well, I've done it. I've made it. Cool. Like, don't have to do anything else again. I just don't think that happens.
Yeah, great. That was very well said. Before we go, before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Ooh, what scares me the most?
And what's the answer to that?
Oh, I think the thing that scares me the most is not being able to do what I love to do. Yeah.
Does that push you forward?
Definitely. Because I think, like, I've always thought, if no one's going to give me a job, then I'm going to give it to myself. I'm going to write the thing. I'm going to make the video. I'm going to pick up the camera. I'm going to make the live show. I'm going to go back to theater. I'm going to direct the kids' play. I'm going to choreograph the blah, blah, blah. Like, I will make the job for me if I have to. And I'll probably do that anyway, let's be honest.
Cool.
But yeah.
You're your number one advocate, and that's all that we can kind of ask for. I think that's amazing. Before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, and all the cool things that you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is Lakin, which is my name. And
Yo is your name.
it's some, it's stuff about, it's like family life and work life and all that kind of stuff. I have a Vimeo, which is my name, Christine Lakin. You can see a bunch of my directing stuff. And then I'm also on Facebook at Official Christine Lakin.
Cool. Those will be in the episode notes below, so people can check them out. Thank you so much. You're so inspiring, and I love your story. We're going to do 10 parts because we've just tackled so much, and it was so awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
I absolutely love Christine's yes mentality. Christine doesn't let negative self-talk take the driver's seat. Instead, she allows herself to take advantage of any given opportunity, no matter how small it may be. She also has this beautiful philosophy on pivoting. As evident in our chat, Christine is not afraid to try new things. And through this, she's gathered a lot of skills, which has ultimately allowed her to thrive in her latest venture, directing. Sometimes as human beings, we want instant results at the click of our fingers. However, that is not always the best result for the long haul. Christine outlines how she's always looking to add to her repertoire, whether it's creating content and producing, or even choreographing. All of this has helped her prosper and succeed in the industry and take advantage of directing. By saying yes, we're indicating that we're open to receiving new opportunities. So I'll leave you with this amazing quote. Pivoting is not the end of the disruption process, but the beginning of the next leg of the journey. Jay Samet. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.